invite you to arrange your bones in such a way that you feel comfortable in your seat, something that allows you to align your spine so it stretches out tall between heaven and earth. You have this sense of grounding and also stretching up as well. And as you're making those last few moment adjustments, as you allow yourself to settle, to find a little bit of stillness, let the eyes close, let the shoulders get heavy. Allow your abdomen to be soft. Perhaps you're in a place where your body is digesting a meal. So just honoring that process in your body. And taking a few moments to simply breathe, to feel into the rise, the fall, the expansion, contraction. And can you allow yourself to land, to just fully arrive into this space, into this moment, this next chunk of time that you've purposely set aside for yourself? Let yourself land. Set aside all the doing, all the toing and froing, and let yourself breathe there. So as some of you are aware, I've been delving into the works of Mark Nepo a little bit more recently. And in experiencing this day in my own toing and froing and trying to stay very much embodied, I came across this little passage. Once again, I'm sharing from Mark's book of poetry called Reduced to Joy. So this little passage is entitled, Repeatedly We Are Asked. Repeatedly we are asked to embody or consume, to be in kinship with everything larger, or to order and manage everything smaller. We are asked every day to align or separate, to coordinate our will with everything living, or to impose our will on everything we meet. And not choosing is a choice. Acquiescence is different from patience or surrender. All this leaves us needing to know whether to better the song through practice or to better ourselves through singing. I just invite you to reflect on those words. I know I found them very appropriate for the way that I ebbed and flowed through my day as I went from being embodied to disembodied and catching myself in crazy weird thought patterns. And I actually caught myself and came back to present moment. Stopped the Kim crazy train before it pulled out of the station. So maybe these words of toing and froing, they spark a moment of recognition within yourself. Something to allow us to pause and reflect, and maybe let that be part of our journey as we go through the physical practice this evening. Noticing where we resist or where we surrender. Maybe we lay to rest our own little thought patterns and crazy dreams for the next hour. So breathe into that space. Acknowledge the fact that you are not the only one. We all travel these strange little paths. Sometimes we catch ourselves, sometimes we don't. And know that it's all okay in the grand scheme of things. Let's come to invite one hand to rest over the heart and the other one to come and land on top of it. Feel into that tender and loving gesture towards yourself. Invite your breath to become a little longer and deeper. Can you feel into the rise and fall underneath your hands, maybe even the beating of your own heart? And from this place, let's offer a little bit of sound. You may choose to raise your voice alongside mine or simply let mine fill your space. The sound of Om 3 times. We'll take a clearing breath first, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And finding sound. Sound fading, allowing your hands to come away from your heart. Allow the eyes to open as you bring a little bit of light back in. And let's just bring our bodies through to a tabletop. So finding all fours. Using blanket, if you happen to have one, to just pad up your knees if you feel you need that. We're just going to fan out nice and wide through the fingers here. Feeling that grounding sensation as it travels through your palms. If you'd like, you could tuck your toes underneath to wake up the feet. It's just an option, it's not a have to. So finding your fit. Pausing here for just a moment. And then little by little, we'll invite the subtle movement of cow and cat to work its way through the spine. And when I say subtle, I mean we start with just the energy of the breath, and then gradually we start to move the hips, the spine, the head. So with your very next inhale, just be aware of how the belly expands towards the ground. You're keeping your back nice and flat. And then as you exhale, navel pulls towards the spine. Everything hugs in. You feel the contraction as you wring out all of the breath. And then inhaling, belly reaches towards the floor. Maybe the tailbone tips up a tiny bit and your gaze just goes forward. The head barely moves. And then exhale, come back to that neutral of tabletop. Squeeze the abdomen. Maybe your tailbone drops a little bit and the gaze is straight towards the floor. The next time you're breathing in, let the tailbone rise a little bit more. Maybe the gaze goes another inch or two forward. And then exhale round. Really listening to your body, paying attention, breaking this down into minute movements. So every time that you breathe in, let the posture of cow evolve a little more. And same thing as you're breathing out. Gradually, that cat pose gets larger and more rounded as you go along. And just listening to your breath as it sings its way through your body, as you invite movement in response to that vital wind song in your body, until you find your fullest expression of cow and cat for this evening. And the invitation is to go through 3 more cycles of cow and cat. And gently releasing after your 3rd cycle of breath, come back to tabletop. And let's walk the hands back towards the knees. Come to a high kneeling. And you'll just wiggle through the fingers, roll through the wrists. Just kind of letting your body intuitively go through these little wrist and finger movements. So while we're in this high kneeling, we'll do a little bit of a release for the neck and the shoulders before we come into our yin practice. So dropping the arms off to the side. Invite your right ear to find its way over towards the right shoulder. And if it feels okay to do so, take the right hand, wrap it around to the left side of the head just to open up that space a little bit more. And one more layer here, take the left hand, tuck it in behind your back, pulling that left shoulder down. And give yourself 3 really nice deep breaths here. Trying to slip into that place of release rather than resistance. And after 3 cycles of breath, let that go. Hand comes away from the head. Arm drops back to your side as everything realigns. Just pause and notice the after effects. And then we'll take that to the other side. So dropping your left ear off to the left shoulder, exploring that possibility of taking the left hand to the right side of your head, just cradling and opening that space. And tucking that right hand into the low back. Nice deep breaths here. And again, trying to keep everything soft. Let the opening occur. 3 more breaths here. And letting that go as you're ready. Hand comes away from the head. Hand comes out of the low back, and drop the chin towards the chest this time. Nice and heavy. I'll take the hands, interlace them at the base of the skull, add a little bit of pressure there. The deeper the breath, the more you might feel the stretch moving down the spine. And if it feels okay to do so, try pushing your head up into your hands. So we're activating the tendons, the ligaments, the muscle fibers that run alongside the neck. And then soften, let that effort go. Release the hands away from the head. Take a moment. And then little by little, let the head come back up towards center. And we'll lower ourselves down to the mat. Bring the feet around in front of us. Let's create butterfly pose. So in creating this butterfly, if you know you've got that little rear tilt to your pelvis where it's hard to sit up when you're on the ground, then wedge yourself up with your blanket or rolled edge of your mat. And bring those soles of feet together. And just pausing here for a moment, let the hips open. Maybe you feel you need to slide your feet a bit further away, or maybe you feel you want to pull them a bit closer in. So what works for you right here? What would create the balance between being and doing? Soften those edges. And let's bring a little bit of movement in here. Let yourself rock off to one side. Come through center and then roll off to the other side. Ideally, you're looking for a little bit of a stretch and release, moving from the rib cage down towards the top of the hip into the low back. Maybe you feel it elsewhere. Just listening to the body. And as you're doing this, if you really enjoy this little bit of a side leaning, let yourself pause for a moment. Maybe you hang out there for 2 or 3 breaths. And then offer that same kindness to the other side. When you feel that movement has served enough of a purpose in creating some relief in the low back and in the hips, you can explore the possibility of curling and rounding forward. And there's no particular way that you need to set up your hands. There's no particular way that you need to hang your head. Just allowing your body to explore curling and rounding forward as we drop into this butterfly. No straining, no striving. Just a gradual surrendering in, meeting one edge, and then maybe sinking to another level. Just seeing what's possible in your body without any expectations. Whatever happened last time in your practice was last time. This is now. Just this. And come to dedicate 3 more breaths to your butterfly, exploring the possibility of stretching those 3 breaths out even further than you have been to this point. And as you're ready to release from your butterfly, being so tender with yourself as you gradually come out. And we'll scoop up those legs. Let them stretch away from you. And maybe you just take a rebound sitting up. Maybe it feels better to lean back on your hands. What works in your world, in your space right now? And perhaps while you're here, you start to craft the breath a little bit, seeking equilibrium between your inhales and your exhales. Moving beyond your natural rhythm, giving yourself something to focus on in the midst of our practice. We'll come to lift ourselves up. So this next pose, you have 2 options. It really depends on knees, hips, hamstrings. Option number 1 is to do a half butterfly now, where one leg stretches long straight out of the body and you bend into the other knee and fold forward. The emphasis is on the hamstrings, the back side of the body. The complementary pose to this, if you have the range of motion and you wish to explore it, is to come into a half frog, where you take that knee that would be bent and flip it around so it reaches behind you. So this is where you make an informed choice based on your body. I'm going to stay in half frog this evening. You may choose to do that along with me, or you may choose to come back to that half butterfly with the foot and the knee turned in and forward. So what works for you? Shake out the leg that's extended. In real time, I have my right leg long. In the camera, it looks like it was the left. So just monitor your lefties and righties since I didn't give direction. And start to soften in here. Just knowing that if you're endeavoring into the half frog with the leg back, the knee either comes straight out of the hip socket or it gets pulled even further back, almost like a half split. And then gradually softening in as you continue to foster that balanced breath, seeing about potentially folding forward, releasing into those hamstrings, the backs of the legs, and softening anywhere else that you can manage to do so. Trying to find stillness. And centering ourselves with the breath. And encouraging as many muscle groups as possible to take a break, to relax rather than tighten and hold. As you breathe in, scan the body. Notice where tension might still be living. As you breathe out, try to dissolve those barriers of resistance, soften in a little more. Anytime that you find yourself being pulled away by thoughts or sensations, catch yourself in that little moment of spin out and then see if you can rally and come back to the breath. Maybe send the breath into those tender areas that are twitching or tensing. Soften, breathe, allow. And you'll come to offer up 1 or 2 more full cycles of breath. And as you're ready to retreat, taking your time as the spine lengthens. If you were in the half frog, it's a gingerly little helping of the back leg to come around front. And same goes for that half butterfly, taking your time as you unravel that wing. And then we come to lean back and find that rebound space, resisting the urge that might be overwhelming to shake and wiggle things off. Just let the body still and keep after itself. Notice what's going on mentally, physically, energetically in this moment. Most likely there's a bit of a dancing of the dance, the toing and froing. Can you catch yourself in that and simply come back to breath? Finding a taller seat, and you'll come to replicate whatever it was that you did the first time through to the other side. So either your half butterfly or your half frog. So again, half butterfly, one leg is long, the other knee is bent. It's making that little wing. And half frog, we're taking that leg that's to be bent and bringing it behind us, either straight out from the knee socket, from the hip socket, or further back. Again, the emphasis is on the hamstring of that extended leg out front. If you're doing half frog, there's also a lovely little activation and release that can happen through the groin. Settle in. Maybe you need to shake out that leg that's long. And then whenever you're ready, the little journey in, spine curling and rounding, hands land where they may. And with each breath, the further you go into your form, gradually trying to dismantle the resistance that might be present. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves to find those easeful moments in our practice. So if you feel like you're in a loop of tense and release, allow yourself to be okay with that. It too is part of the practice. Some days our body welcomes yin and restorative. Other days we claw back and resist. What matters is you chose to show up. To practice with all the conditions and circumstances of life present, and the willingness to let them go. using your breath to comfort and bring you back over and over again. I'm coming to offer another breath or two to your chosen form. And when you're ready to come out, just taking your time once again, spine comes long, and then you gather up that leg that was bent, let it come around, and find a little spot to hang out. Let the body integrate. Feel into all of those wondrous little sensations, deep aches, pulsations, tinglings, hot and cold. Whatever is working through you, let it be. So this next posture we're coming into, you'll want to fold up your blanket. So it could be a very small lift, or if you wanted to, you could make it a little bit thicker. We're going to do Golden Gate Bridge or supported bridge. If you have a bolster in your space, feel free to use that if you know your back can tolerate it. You could also do this with a block, but I'm opting for softer props for this particular session. So you'll come down onto your back on the mat. Bring the feet to the floor. And let's just start with some windshield wipers here before we come into supported bridge or Golden Gate Bridge. Many words for the same posture. So as you're ready, bringing the feet a little bit closer to the buttocks, having your prop handy. And as you're ready, follow an exhale. So breathing out, start to feel weight coming into your heels. And as the breath becomes almost completely vanished, squeeze into the glutes, lift up your hips, and slide that support underneath you to your low back sacrum area. And you're looking for that sweet spot where it feels good to have that support underneath you. So again, you may want a fairly thick, high lift because that's what your body needs, or you may need something a lot lower to the ground. just respecting tenderness. And we'll start here. Arms can reach off to the side, just comfortably. You can let your head rock from one side to the other. Open and close your mouth a few times. Let the face relax as you stretch out the jaw. And this is the first layer to our bridge. Feeling into this, making sure you feel stable and supported with whatever propping you've invited onto the mat with you. Breathing those full, deep, balanced breaths. The next layer to this is to explore reaching your arms overhead, letting them rest on the floor. See how that feels for neck and shoulders. Maybe it's more of a Y shape rather than reaching tall like an I. So if you've added the arms, breathe into that experience. More moments of settling. Reminding ourselves there's no rush in this practice whatsoever. Another layer to explore adding is stretching one leg away and then the other. This is where we're creating Golden Gate Bridge. As far as the Yin world is concerned, maybe you've heard it called extended bridge or something else. And whether the legs go long or not really depends on your hips, on your back. So exercising best judgment, the inner listening to your body, and trusting that the choice you make is the appropriate one for you. Knowing that if you've added some or all of these layers and you reach a point where you can't breathe in, around, or through mounting sensations, then you slowly retreat, go back to the place where you felt safe, secure, and just play out the rest of the pose in that place of contentment. Let the body get heavy. Let it surrender as best you can. If your legs are reaching away, little by little, start to slide the feet back underneath you. And then we bring the arms more towards the side if they were reaching in any other direction. Come back to the beginning. And before we completely deconstruct this supported bridge exploration, you have the option to see about bringing the knees up towards the chest, finding a bit of balance here. And maybe even straightening the legs up a little bit, finding half supported shoulder stand or waterfall pose. And at this point, we begin to invite our exhalations to be longer than the inhalations. Quiet the nervous system. And if you're in this little inversion with the knees or the legs up, little by little, bringing the feet back to the floor, either one at a time or both legs together, slow and controlled. Feel the connection point of your heels to the ground. And when you're ready, exhale, push off, lift, and slide that support out. Hold for just a moment. And then lower down slowly, mindfully, one rib, one vertebrae at a time. Don't rush it. See if you can be fully embodied in the wonder and the sensations as your body releases. Eventually everything touches down and there's this almost bottoming out feeling, like your back disappears. Breathe into that. And from this place of deep integration, just doing that deep inner listening work. Do you need to move in some way to help facilitate an easeful resting pose? Or are you ready to just stretch out and lay against the earth in some way, shape, or form? If you need a little bit of movement, let yourself find that movement for just a little while. If you're ready to stretch out into maybe a supported shavasana with something underneath your knees as you stretch out your legs, or maybe you feel like you want to lay on your side in a fetal position for the end of practice. Just doing what makes sense for you. And as you find that place of deep stillness and rest, the invitation for your very next 3 breaths to have that emphasized exhale. And after those 3 very attentive breaths, you can continue with the longer exhales if it feels nourishing for your system, or you can let it all go, settle back to natural rhythms. The breath getting so quiet, it's barely noticeable. And you get heavier and heavier. You begin to drift and float. Just this. Repeatedly, we are asked to embody or consume, to be in kinship with everything larger, or to order and manage everything smaller. We are asked every day to align or separate, to coordinate our will with everything living, or to impose our will on everything we meet. And not choosing is a choice. Acquiescence is different from patience or surrender. All this leaves us needing to know whether to better the song through practice or to better ourselves through singing. yourself to take a deep and rich breath in and let it go with sound. Tuck yourself tight into a ball. Maybe you're on your back and you begin to rock side to side. Maybe you're in a fetal position and you just want to get a little bit tighter and then stretch wide. From these first movements, allowing for intuition to take over, that inner wisdom, as you begin to shift and move your body back into a space where your spine comes to realign itself between heaven and earth. Taking your time, honoring the sensitivities, this potential fragility that exists at the end of practice. And as you find your way back to that place of length and space in your body, either inviting the hands to join at heart center for Anjali Mudra, or coming back to that place where hands rest over the heart, one on top of the other. What feels most authentic to you in this moment? And from this place, we offer sound one more time. The vibration of Om, just one single sound. Clearing breath in, letting it go. Find the vibration. The light in me bows to the light in you. I thank you for your practice. Namaste.